Lincoln, born in St. Ann, Missouri, an Air Force engineer. Between them, 40 years in the space program.
When liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis.
Hurley was on board the final space shuttle mission in 2011, the last flight before the program officially retired.
I certainly didn't expect to fly again. I certainly didn't necessarily have a plan to fly again. 5 years ago, when the four of us were selected, I was asked that question if I wanted to fly again, and if so, on a commercial vehicle, and I thought that was probably an exciting thing to do and the right thing to do at that point, and here we are.
Bob Behnken has more than 700 hours in space and 6 spacewalks under his belt.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
The Right Stuff runs deep in both families. Their better halves are also decorated NASA astronauts. Megan MacArthur, married to Bob, and Karen Nyberg, married to Doug, all 4 in the NASA class of 2000. 2 families tied together by one interstellar connection.
Our families have been in this development program for 5 years. We've seen, launch date kind of come and go, and for me, this is starting to finally feel real.
When the day comes that we watch the guys walking out to go to the launch pad, then it'll even more so start to hit home in that way.
At liftoff, both families' young sons will be watching from the launch pad. This drawing by Hurley's son, a reminder that spaceships are as American as apple pie, something Doug Hurley knew back then on the Atlantis' final flight.
It goes transonic for the final time.
There's a lot of emotion today, but one thing's indisputable. America's not going to stop exploring.
Godspeed.
All right, Gio Benitez right there. Gio, an incredible piece there. I am curious, because you are at the Kennedy Space Center, how far are you from the actual rocket, and what is the weather looking like? Because right now, that's the big unknown.
Yeah, so we are about 3.5 miles from that launch pad right now. We're getting a little bit of rain here and there, but it has to be exactly right at 4:33 p.m. Now, the first critical moment is happening at 3:48 p.m., so that's just about 22 minutes from now, and that is critical because that is when they decide whether or not they are going to load the fuel. So we will be watching that very closely, Tom.
All right, Gio, we thank you for that. Joining us now, NASA astronaut Christina Cook. She's probably also watching the weather there. She just got back from the International Space Station in February, where she set the record for consecutive days in space by a woman, 328 days, nearly a year. She also made history by conducting the first all-female spacewalk. You may remember that with fellow astronaut Jessica Meir. Christina joins us now from the Johnson Space Center in Houston, JSC for all the space buffs out there. Christina, you know Bob and Doug. In fact, you helped prepare their gear on the space station. So what can you reveal about what they packed, and what was that process like?
Well, it is great to be with both of you today, and great to be here on such a historic day. Really looking forward to the launch. And yes, I am watching the weather too. Being on board prior to those 2 arriving was an exciting time, because I got to unload all of their stuff as it arrived kind of in pieces over time on our various cargo vehicles. And yes, some of it even arrived on earlier SpaceX cargo vehicles. I organized some of their food. We do get a chance to select some crew-specific food items, especially coffee and the like, and then of course our provisions, like what we're going to wear day to day, all of our hygiene products and things like that. So, you don't get to pack your own bags when you go to space, but luckily NASA kind of takes care of all that for you and makes sure it's up there well in advance of your arrival.
All right, Christina, stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. Coming up, a closer look at the man Robert Downey Jr. turned to for inspiration when creating his Tony Stark character for the Iron Man movies. Elon Musk and his ambitions, both larger than life. The man behind SpaceX, when we come back.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
24/7 streaming news source from ABC News.
There goes.
Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video.
That's a grenade.
Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling. From ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go there
trying
now.
to put this fire out right now.
With ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw,
Welcome to
live.
the Columbus Zoo.
No matter where the next step takes us,
We will kill you to good run.
we're taking it.
It's frightening.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free.
Wow.
Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you.
Now, with so much on the line, more Americans are turning to David Muir and ABC's World News Tonight than any other show on all of television. And we thank you.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Thank you to the doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals,
and first responders.
Thank you to everyone keeping our supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations running.
Thank you to all the essential workers for all that you do.
Thank you.
We thank you.
We thank you. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all you do.
And with every challenge, question, concern, we'll be here for you every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Because we will
get through this together.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Nightline. The stories that shape your world, shape your life. Dramatic, stunning, empowering, jaw-dropping. Watch the most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline on Hulu.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then you change the world.
If she had made this work, she would have been the next Steve Jobs.
It's the stunning documentary millions and millions watched. Now see for yourself what everyone is talking about. The Dropout, now on Hulu.
And welcome back to Launch America. You are looking at hallowed ground when it comes to space exploration. The Launch Pad 39A, originally built for the massive Saturn V rockets that sent the first astronauts to the moon, from the Apollo missions to the space shuttle, this launch pad has been the starting point for many of the nation's most daring missions. And today, it's run by SpaceX and has been modified to launch the Falcon 9 rocket.
All right, let's bring back in NASA astronaut Christina Cook. And Christina, you have had the opportunity to fly on the Russian Soyuz. I'm curious to know, as everybody is talking about whether we're preoccupied, if everything's going to be just right for launch today, do the Russians have the same criteria? Is the threshold just as high for launching?
The weather criteria for launching out of Kazakhstan is a little bit different. And then also the weather patterns there, I think, don't usually present as much uncertainty, if you will. Everyone knows that Florida weather, especially by the coast, is difficult to predict. When we watched Bob and Doug walk out of the ONC building, it looked sunny and like they'd be ready to go. And the recent pictures we've been seeing of the rocket definitely show it a little bit ominously covered in clouds. So we will certainly see, but we definitely have a joke that with the Soyuz, you don't have weather delays as often. And if you're in that rocket, you're probably going to space that day.
Christina, I want to ask you a funny question. Can you look just behind you at that poster that they've put up there of Doug and Bob? it sort of feels different, right? Doesn't this new era of space exploration feel different? I mean, it almost looks like you're looking at a film poster right there.
Absolutely, and I think that that's one of the exciting things about this era. We're really encompassing the idea of going for all and by all, and we're bringing in commercial companies into that loop. We're making sure that we fostered a space economy, and we're, really just growing the American preeminence in that world and in that new industry. And so, as we say, we're bringing more and more people into the fold, and that's kind of answering NASA's call to explore for all humanity.
The marriage between NASA and SpaceX, we are seeing it in full display today. All right, Christina, we're going to check back with you. Stand by for us. One of the most fascinating truths about how we got here is that NASA, which is one of the government's most by-the-book agencies, is partnered today with a notorious rule breaker that has made him billions, visionary entrepreneur Elon Musk. He is both an immigrant success story and an American success story. Arguably, it's largely on his shoulders that today is even possible. We call it the Musk factor. Let's take a look.
3, 2, 1, 0.
If Elon Musk can think it, then he wants to build it, turning science fiction into reality, building an electric car, then launching it into space, playing by his own rules, from smoking marijuana on the Joe Rogan podcast to tweeting whatever he wants, regardless if it hurts him financially. Robert Downey Jr. reportedly based his portrayal of Iron Man, the rule-breaking genius superhero, off Musk.
Good idea for an electric jet. You do.
This real-life Iron Man has had a hand in everything, from solar power to artificial intelligence. A founder of PayPal and a multi-millionaire by his 30s, Musk would spend his fortunes disrupting deep-rooted industries. Tesla Motors, those bold and futuristic electric cars. And SpaceX, spending nearly $100 million with a dream of rewriting the rules of the space industry.
Everyone thought he was crazy. Everyone laughed at him.
They had 3 failures in a row.
Well, failure sucks. It's really terrible.
But the 4th attempt,
We have liftoff.
a successful launch. And the risk-adverse NASA decided to take a chance on Musk. In 2008, awarding SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract. Musk's vision on full display in this moment in 2015, perfecting a rocket system to launch and land on a pinpoint to be reused again.
Holy smokes, man.
But he isn't the only billionaire in the space race. Jeff Bezos and his company Blue Origin and Sir Richard Branson with his Virgin Galactic spaceships hope to also fly a human into orbit. But if Musk can accomplish that today, he will make history and earn that coveted phrase in space exploration, the first. All right, and I want to bring back in astronauts Christina Cook and, of course, Katie Coleman, who's joining us on set right now to talk a little more about the Musk factor, because we have seen certain things today, certain moments so far that are very un-NASA-like, not in a bad way, but I'm saying breaking tradition, maybe in a good way. And one of those moments for both of us, Katie, was watching those families around the Tesla sort of do those virtual hugs. And for a viewer, for somebody who's not as invested in the space program as you as an American, I can watch that and say, that's pretty cool, that's pretty amazing, that's something new, that's going to keep us interested and sort of show the human connection with the astronauts and Americans.
Well, I think that with both these companies, I mean, there's SpaceX, there's NASA, we also have other commercial partners, and I liken it to having a wedding. Okay, where you have the family of the groom and the family of the bride. And, they all have the same goal, which is exploration or get their kids married. But then, each of them do different, have different traditions that the other ones would never think of. And it's that process of getting that together and making it happen. And it seems like it's worked out pretty well for this space family.
And I'm curious, so Michael Griffin, who's an aerospace veteran, he said at some point the rocket industry needs a Henry Ford, and maybe Elon will be that guy. When we talk about Elon and kind of this billionaires club, as there's a race for space at this point, would you say that space should be for people who just have experience, or do you like the idea of this tourism, this space tourism?
I think the more people, the better. I mean, more people, more ideas. I mean, who would have thought of putting their small red car on the top of a rocket on its way to Mars, right? And NASA wouldn't have been able to because of our responsibilities to the taxpayers. And yet, a lot more people know about this. And so, having people that think differently, that's really the way we're going to get to Mars.
Christina, you saw those spacesuits. They were so cool the first time we saw them. You've been up close with them. What are they like? And I mean, what do the astronauts think of them?
Well, I think the astronauts really like them in particular because they don't have as many kind of, bells and whistles hanging off of them. They're very sleek design, but they get the job done. And that job is to provide a pressurized suit in the case of an, very unlikely but possible capsule depressurization. They actually form sort of a bubble of breathable air and oxygen around the astronauts. They do all of that through a single umbilical that's on the leg. And so that sleekness is just always appreciated by astronauts. They are custom fit, so they're less bulky, which is another great feature for when you're squeezing into a spacecraft. And I think that to get the job done and to look cool while doing it, no one would say no to that.
A question really for either of you, Katie or Christina. This is a $3.1 billion effort. And a lot of the Earthlings here are wondering, what's the benefit for us down here on Earth? What's the payoff?
I'll let Christina start there. I know I've got my thoughts from when I was up on the station.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're in a time where we can't afford to not fund both of this research and this private-public partnership that's going to make it into a new space economy. If we're not sort of utilizing the billions of dollars that are already in the space economy and growing that, then we're not going to achieve the global preeminence as leaders in spaceflight. So it's an exciting time. As a worker on board the space station for 11 months, I participated in hundreds of science experiments, and every single one of those was intended to bring benefits back to Earth, benefits in pharmaceuticals, benefits in industrial edges, and understanding deeper into physical sciences, and then also how we can explore further. So it's a time when we're actually making an investment in something that's the kind of the best investment you can possibly hope for. Can't understate the inspirational aspects as well. Elon Musk, we were just talking about him, and he actually credited seeing the Apollo 11 launch and the landing on the moon as his inspiration for possibly even starting SpaceX altogether. So we're planting the seeds of exploration and what we can all do with STEM careers in addition to grabbing those benefits both economically and with science.
Thank you, Christina. Katie, we'll get your thoughts in just a moment. When we come back, the key moment that we told you about earlier, will Mission Control give the go-ahead to fuel the rocket?
Tonight, COVID-19 still spreading. As lockdowns ease and crowds get larger, are Americans being cautious enough? The new hotspots. With so much at stake, World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
Do you trust him?
I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying.
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
We know coronavirus has affected so many of you.
America has changed for now. There's no question about that.
People are finding a way to come together.
What else should people know about how to care for their families through this?
And you feel it's not too late to flatten the curve.
It's not too late.
When do we expect to have a vaccine?
George, we are all thinking of you, Allie, and the kids.
How are you feeling?
I feel fine, Robin. She wanted to share this message.
You know I'm feverish if I'm on national television with no makeup on.
Allie is now on the Roberts family prayer chain. Robin, how you doing? I'm loving this. Gonna keep these slippers on.
We are so grateful
grateful that we get to do this from home.
I'm going to take the camera and turn it around. Kelly was doing prompter. You do know you're sideways, right?
It's great to see so many Americans stepping up.
All in this together.
The world coming together as one.
We're going to get through this together.
Right here with you on Good Morning America.
Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app. Now, with so much on the line, ABC News, America's #1 news, is right there for you live on Hulu. With stories of strength, stories of hope. Because now, when it matters most,
Hulu has live news.
Hulu has live news.
Hulu has live news, and that news is ABC News.
ABC News Live on Hulu.
ABC News Live on Hulu.
watch the news you need.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Streaming to all Hulu subscribers right now.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you.
ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
Good morning, sunshine.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, I'm grateful you woke up this morning.
Good morning, sunshine.
Good morning, sunshine. We've been waiting for you. Say good morning.
Good morning, sunshine.
In America. Say good morning. I want you to wake me up.
And welcome back to our coverage of Launch America. A milestone last October, you'll remember, when astronauts Christina Cook and Jessica Meir ventured out of the International Space Station to replace a power controller. They became the first to take part in an all-female spacewalk. The walk lasted more than 7 hours and included a brief call with President Trump. Christina Cook joins us live now for our coverage here on Launch America. And Christina, I have to ask you, speaking with President Trump on Earth can be an adventure. What was it like there during the spacewalk speaking with the president?
Well, it was certainly an honor. You know, during a spacewalk, you're extremely focused on the job at hand. You're in a risky environment. You know that every move that you make is important. Dexterity is, an issue. You're tired. And so to have a little break and to get that unexpected call was definitely exciting. And, just hearing his familiar voice while you're out in the vacuum of space, it just goes to show that anything is possible.
And President Trump, the first U.S. president to visit Space Coast for a launch since Bill Clinton in 1998. Katie, I want to bring you back in just to give us a sense of what's about to happen with the launch director. There's going to be a poll of go or no go. How does that get decided?
So they're basically looking at whether it's a go for launch poll, but the first stage of that is go for fueling. And this is an unusual kind of launch in that usually that rocket is fueled before the crew gets there, because fueling itself is a very dangerous operation. And yet between SpaceX and NASA, they have figured out ways to make that process safe enough that everybody is up for the idea of it. And yet when it comes to a day where are we going to launch or not, you don't want to do something like that if you already know you're not going to launch. So what they're doing is at 3:48, we should know whether they're go for fueling or not.
And I'm just curious, want to piggyback off of that, because you talked about how dangerous it is to actually fuel while, we're going to listen to the launch. I believe that's the launch director right now.
Proceed with swing into crew arm. Arming crew arm move in for T-minus 45 minutes.
So this is like the last major visual milestone.
A reminder,
so basically they're doing everything up until starting
protocol.
fueling.
For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief CE or LD, and it will approve aborting the launch auto sequence and proceed to launch abort. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. Operators shall also advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. Remainder on fire alarm instructions here in Fire Room 4. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators, previously briefed, will remain at their post while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personal safety is threatened, we will evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. One final reminder, they'll be arming the launch escape system momentarily. Need all personnel, please stay in your seats from now through orbit insertion and Dragon separation from the second stage.
Katie, talk to us about what's happening right now.
So they're basically getting the whole team on one page. Everybody knows everything they just said, but they're saying it again, so everybody's listening. Everybody knows we're about to enter a new phase. And we're going to make sure that, and these are the new procedures we follow, which are very prescribed. And you don't bring up small things; it's only big things. And this is what's going to happen. We're all going to do together.
Now, when you say everyone's being polled here or asked, are we talking about SpaceX, NASA, Kennedy Space Center?
Yes.
Are we Johnson? We're talking about everybody.
Everybody, but also things like we say the range. The range is like basically the physical tableau of the seas out in the range. Is there boats out there? Are there planes in the area that shouldn't be? There's all sorts of details, and they're each managed by one area. So they're polling the weather. And they're doing it electronically, actually.
I wanted to just go back to, you talked about how dangerous it is to fuel the rocket after you have the crew on board. What's the advantage to doing it like that?
Well, I'd say it's dangerous whenever you do it. It's just that when you've got the crew on board, you try not to do that. But the advantage is that you can fuel until the last minute. That fuel is really cold, but it's always boiling off, and you can actually have more fuel in that rocket when it lifts off. Otherwise, you fuel ahead, some of that's burned off. You had to have sort of more rocket to take care of it. So you've got really the maximum amount of fuel before you lift off.
Christina, you recently came back from space. Talk to us about what Doug and Bob are going through right now in their minds. They're 43 minutes from possibly making history. The weather does look a little off. It's not perfect by any means of the imagination. Do they want to get there? Do they want to be safe? Walk me through what they're thinking right now.
Yes, well, they did just arm their launch abort system, which also happened on my flight about 40 minutes prior to liftoff. And I can tell you that when that happens, you definitely want to do your flight. But of course, you only want to do it if it is going to be safe and if it is going to be successful. And you know that there's a whole lot of teams of professionals making those determinations. So you trust in those teams. Those teams are absolutely amazing at what they do. They know every little nuance of this vehicle and every nuance of the weather and what it can bring to you. So I'm pretty sure that Bob and Doug are just ready to do their job and ready to count on, the experts that are behind that.
I think we're going to go back to the launch director again.
For Section 7.
Okay. So that means those 8 throttle valves are opened, and if those Super Dracos needed to fire in order for a Dragon to escape off of the pad, they could.
So this is the abort system they're talking about.
Running just a little bit ahead of schedule right now.
So, Katie, walk us through that, the abort system. This is obviously if something goes wrong or if the launch doesn't happen at all.
Correct. And so if they want to make sure it's armed before fueling, which is a dangerous operation. It's something that basically they can pull that capsule off it actually shoots itself off the top of that rocket, and we can save the crew anywhere along the path, really, of ascent, all the way across the ocean.
You have experienced, unfortunately, I guess on your first mission, what was it, 7 scrubbed attempts in the first 30 days, is that right? And it kind of give us a sense of, you're all prepared and amped and excited for this moment, and then the letdown of the weather isn't going to cooperate.
I think there's part of a real person that just thinks, how could a real person really go and do this? And when this happens sort of again and again, you just think, well, maybe real people don't get to go. And yet, when you wake up in the morning, you put on that suit and you walk out, you just can't help but be ready. And, when the day is right, you went. I do have members of my family that still haven't forgiven me. They're all texting, actually, as we speak, because, my mom's like, when is it going to go? I'm like, Mom, I don't know. She's like, I'm your mother. You can tell me.
You know, we are hearing about the weather trending in the right direction. At least that's what we've been told. We'll see exactly what happens because it is changing moment by moment. But I do want to ask you and Christina both, since we have about 40 minutes before we're going to see this, what is going on in the minds? I mean, are you able to talk to your fellow astronauts as you're sitting there in the for you the space shuttle or in this case the capsule? Are you praying if you're religious? I know there's a lot of things you have to check through before liftoff, but what's happening right now?
Well, in my last shuttle launch, we were launching the Chandra X-ray Observatory, and in between, I mean, there's the comm checks, and then there's a really long time, in this case, like 2 hours, where you're laying on your back, and there's really not that much to do but have all the systems be checked, and I took a nap.
You fell asleep before launch?
I mean, on purpose. I mean, I had like a really big day to launch, a $1.8 billion telescope, so I'm efficient.
Christina, talk to me about that training, though. And obviously, this was Katie's experience, but you sort of are trained not to make a mistake and to be absolutely in the right mindset in case any kind of mistake happens. So much so you're able to take a nap right before launching into space.
Well, we weren't really doing anything at that time, okay?
No,
it's
no,
not like this countdown.
But I think most people would be nervous. But Christina, for you, what was sort of your ritual before you took off?
Sure.
Well, Katie, I commend you for taking a nap. That was definitely a good use of time. It is a long day on launch day. You know, Bob and Doug have kind of banker's hours today. They woke up at a normal time, got to have that famous breakfast, and then sort of are taking off in the afternoon. For my flight, I had to do a big sleep shift and took some hours of sleep in the day and then took off really late at night around 10 p.m. So for me, the ritual was just about making sure that my body was ready and that I was kind of like well fed and well rested. But, you know, everyone says that the astronauts are usually the calmest people in the room on launch day, and I really found that to be true. We just feel ready, really prepared. We're ready to do the job that we came there for and that we know that we're ultimately prepared for. We're ready to conduct that mission, and I think that we know that if we spend any time even thinking about some of the things that could go wrong, that's not time well spent. We take any kind of nervousness or fear and turn it into focus and really just visualize success and then sit back and make sure that we're clear-headed to take on anything that could come our way.
But Katie, you have likened this before to a very, very, very risky taxi ride. And so while the risks have certainly decreased in time, especially now with these new space shuttles, I'm just curious, spaceships, I'm just curious if fear plays at all, especially that image of Doug's 10-year-old son. And we may have a picture that he drew of the Crew Dragon. But just and he said as they were driving away, you know, love you. And I'm just trying to imagine you have a son as well as Bob and Doug. That moment and the fear and just the potential for something to potentially go wrong. And I think we have the picture there that his son drew.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
You know, I think you make your, well, I can only speak for myself, but I think it's true for many people. You make your decision about whether you want to be on the top of that rocket years before you're ever there. And so you're where you've trained to be, and, you know, we decided this is what Jamie's mom did, you know, so to speak. And I think you're there, you're doing your job, you're not thinking about making history, any of those things. You're just there really making sure that everything is working right. I have to say, you know, it's a relief when these critical phases of flight, you know, launch and landing are finished. And my husband sent me a photo of I flew on the Soyuz as well, and it's our little guy in his little Russian hat in December in Baikonur, you know, saluting on that little square. And of course, you know, I cried up on that space station.
I'd like to bring in Steve Ganyard, if we could, and Steve, just get a sense from what does it mean to be a test pilot, first of all, and how did Bob and Doug get picked?
Yeah, they've got interesting different backgrounds. Bob is he's a rocket scientist. He is a PhD, and he spent his Air Force career doing things that involved very highly technical, complex, space-related activities. Doug is a test pilot, so he and I flew together F-18s in the Marine Corps. He had a great Marine Corps career, went to the actual test pilot school that the Navy has at Patuxent River, and became a test pilot, learning how to fly things that fly and need air-breathing kinds of airplanes. But this has been the traditional route for all the way back to the Mercury and the Gemini and Apollo astronauts, where you put them through the test pilot school and they learn how to operate machines, sophisticated machines, but then they go into space where everything is new. So you have sort of an interesting mix here where you have the PhD and the guy who's the stick and rudder guy Both are brilliant. Both are great officers and great astronauts. So it's a good mix. And in August, they'll send up 4 of these astronauts if the launch is successful today. So this is the stepping stone. They're going to prove this first mission that they can get people up safely to the ISS and back again. And then in August, they'll go up with a 4, because we got to remember that the Dragon capsule here can take 4 astronauts at a time, and they'll take cargo and things like that back up to the ISS. So that's sort of what the intent is here. Bob and Doug, I texted with Doug a couple days ago, and Doug said expects to be up there for about 2 to 3 months. So we'll see how that plays out. It's a little bit open-ended, but they're both ready to get going and start the adventure.
A dynamic team, no doubt. You know, Steve, one of the big reasons why we're here today is because Elon Musk and SpaceX have proved that they can deliver results. And one of the biggest results was the reusable rocket, the Falcon 9 that we're talking about today, and some of the amazing things that can do. I mean, the first time I actually saw what this thing was capable of essentially landing on a pinpoint, it's sort of like you take a step back, like, is this real? And it was able to do that. So, Steve, I want to ask you, how important is that when we talk about the cost of space and what Elon Musk has been able to do?
Yeah, we wouldn't be here today, Tom, if we couldn't drive down the cost of getting to space, and that is on Elon Musk. He is a larger-than-life entrepreneur. This has been his life's goal, and his life legacy, he hopes, will be to eventually create a colony on Mars. So what we're seeing today is just one more step in the legacy that Elon Musk is looking to build in the years to come.
We want to send it back out to Gio Benitez, and we have heard, Gio, that they have decided it is a go to go ahead and put the gas in, right?
They've started.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing right now that's keeping them on the ground in the next 34 minutes is the fact that the weather is still iffy. We are seeing it start to clear up, but there is a dark cloud coming, so we'll have to wait. By the way, they have quite the sense of humor. Doug Hurley today, he was being asked, what did you have for breakfast? And he said, question answered, and he tweeted this photo out, steak and eggs, he said. So that was breakfast he had at 11:30. Those steak and eggs, good old steak and eggs. Lindsay.
Gio, thanks so much. They are fueling the rocket as we
Gio approves of that full protein, low carb breakfast there.
Oh, is that part of the keto diet? Does that work? When we come back, we'll be joined by yet another NASA astronaut. What did she hear from Bob and Doug's wives? And what did the space station crew tell her just last week? We'll find out. Stay with us.
Another week in America, a country facing a new test now.
The Wuhan airport, almost no one here.
The last flight out of Rome.
This is the nursing home just outside Seattle.
Dozens of people were just rushed off this cruise ship.
This is ground zero. It is shut down.
Another ambulance just pulled out.
Now they're headed to the hospital.
Time is of the essence.
You can see the ship behind me.
This is the first time tests have been done here.
Morning, afternoon, evening, late night, 24/7. ABC News, there for you.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Wow. Breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime. Streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live.
From inside our homes to your home, now is the time. We all just need each other. And that's why every morning we love starting the day together with you. Here's to better days together. And we'll see you in the morning on ABC's Good Morning America. Man, I just love saying that.
This new normal is so far from normal for kids. So tomorrow,
Hi, Elmo.
Hi. Who better to answer their questions than Michael, Elmo, and Cookie Monster?
You guys are awesome.
Plus, GMA's Summer Deals and Steals, helping American businesses and giving you awesome deals.
Afternoons on ABC. One place with the good information you need. Pandemic. What you need to know. At 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime, 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC. Now, with so much on the line, more Americans are turning to David Muir and ABC's World News Tonight than any other show. Thank you for making ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir the most watched show on all of television.
Thank you to the doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals,
and first responders.
Thank you to everyone keeping our supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations running.
Thank you to all the essential workers for all that you do.
Thank you.
We thank you.
We thank you. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all you do.
And with every challenge, question, concern, we'll be here for you every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Because we will
get through this together.
We move up to the vehicle. He detonates the bomb.
The heroes who stopped the killer, who held the city of Austin hostage for 19 days.
It's a tripwire. All hands on deck.
The clues, the Home Depot video, that truck, and the agent who connected the dots.
It was exactly the vehicle that we were looking for.
Inside the investigation,
Vans made contact.
the takedown of the bomber. Now streaming on Hulu.
Station Space to Ground 1, good evening for the DPC.
Good evening, Chris, Vanya, and Anatoly. The plan is on board for you to review if you like. And for you, Chris, we have a couple of items when you're ready.
Okay, ready to go.
That is the voice of astronaut Jeanette Epps talking to the crew of the International Space Station just last week from the Johnson Space Center. We'd like to welcome to the show now Jeanette Epps. And Jeanette, you spoke with Space Station astronaut Chris Cassidy last week. What did he say about Bob and Doug's arrival?
Well, when I talked with Chris and on board, he was looking for things to do to get ready for Bob to visit so that they can do a spacewalk together. So he was looking for Bob's equipment. He wanted to set it out. He wanted to set up the EMUs, which is the spacesuit. And so I think Chris is very excited for them to join him on board.
And you also had a chance to talk with their wives, Karen and Megan. What did they share with you?
Well, I haven't talked to them recently, but I'm sure that they are excited and to be a part of something that's so historical right now.
You know, Jeanette, for viewers at home who maybe don't understand what Capcom does, you essentially are the middleman, but you're not really the middleman. You're that essential thread between the astronauts on the spaceship and all of us Earthlings here on the ground.
Well, today I won't be that person, but yes, the Capcom is the person that talks to the crew. There's many experts on the ground, and all of them can't talk to the crew at once. So what happens is all the experts talk to the flight director, and then the flight director tells the Capcom, we can go up with that. And that way you reduce the complexity and the confusion for the crew, and they can go forward easily and execute.
And I was going to say, and it comes from a trusted voice. Like Jeanette will have, a tone like, so I'm hearing this, and it can have this tone that just says, I know it's not what you want to hear, but we've got a lot of people who looked at it as what you got to do.
It's soothing, I guess, in a way. Give us a sense of what it's like inside Mission Control, Jeanette.
Well, mission control, sometimes it can be very busy, but on a good day, it's very boring. That means that there's no bells or whistles going on off on the ISS. That means that it's a very calm day, and we only have a few things to tell the crew. And we can either tell them during the day, or we can wait till our evening daily planning conferences. So it can be very busy because you have multiple experts. You have someone who's an expert in the electrical power systems, on the communication systems, you even have a person that's doing all the planning for every day for their schedule on board. So you have many experts in the room, but not all of them can talk to the crew at once.
All right, Jeanette Epps for us. Jeanette, thanks so much for that. We are 26 minutes from launch, and we have some breaking news, if you will. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine telling President Trump we are a go for launch right now. So, guys, when do the astronauts, when do they find out, Doug and Bob, that they are definitely a go? Right from the get-go, they know this? They're the first ones that find out?
Well, you know, they hear those polls. Those same polls that we were listening to, they hear those things. So they're hearing at the same time that we are. But I was just listening to a conversation about, you know, basically lightning, the energy of lightning, the energy in the air. They're looking at that, you know, being within limits or not. They're going to reevaluate it at about 413. And they told that to the crew.
And go ahead, Lindsay.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, T-minus 20, 413. But let's go to Ginger Z if we can. Do we have Ginger available so that we can kind of get a little bit of an advanced weather update, Ginger?
Yes, you've got me available, and I've got a radar both in my hand and right behind me that you need to see because there is still lightning. I mean, the one on my phone I've got really close up, but there's a lightning strike as close as 7 miles, and that would be within the vicinity. But as we've learned, it is not just about cloud-to-ground lightning or one lightning strike. It's about the electrical charge. It's about the height of the clouds that are surrounding. It's about charges in the atmosphere 10 miles around the diameter of where this spaceship will be going up. So here's the futurecast. It keeps that kind of mass of storms just to the southeast of Kennedy Space Center. That's the whole Space Coast, which has been littered with lightning today. So there have been a lot of electrical charges. I know from Captain Jason Fontenot, who is working in the forecast team, that they have field measurements of all of these electrical charges everywhere. And they're also looking for wind shear, right? They've been sending balloons up because that can interact and shut down a rocket launch. They cannot have those cumulonimbus. You can't even have the debris cloud, as we call it, that comes off of a thunderstorm or a separated anvil from an old thunderstorm. It's too much charge, and the rocket itself, with the exhaust, can help make lightning. It doesn't even have to be a lightning strike. So that's something that they are feverishly watching because it is going to be down to the minute, I anticipate, as we get in here. And right now, I think it's too close, but those storms could move just outside that vicinity, and I assume that's why they're waiting.
Ginger, real quick, because we just have 2 minutes, but explain it to us. If the NASA administrator told the president we are a go for launch, we look at your graphics, and it looks like a lot of storms and a lot of action right there. What are they seeing that we're not seeing?
So I think that they are just hoping that lasts. And Mel, if you can go back to the radar, because I think that's really what they're watching. But they also have, remember, they've got those tools. Even the people who are doing the forecast themselves, they have a radar that we are not privy to. They've got other imaging that they're looking for. So I'm thinking that they're watching this batch of lightning, because that's the closest, and any of the cloud cover that is outside of the Space Coast. And they're seeing if those electrical charges are within there. And if it meets the criteria, I guess they launch. To me, I'd be looking at this and saying, as a person who studied meteorology and has married myself to the troposphere, well, like, wow, well, that seems very close. But I'm assuming if this moves just a couple another miles east, and we do have a lot of subsidence, by the way, after Bertha, so we do have some sinking air. I'm hoping they are seeing something that I don't see there. So Lindsay and Tom, I guess we'll see in the next couple of minutes.
All right, Ginger, we're going to work on getting you that special radar from NASA. Okay, so we are just moments away from launch. Will they go, or will the weather slay the dragon? We're just minutes away. Stay with us on the other end of this break.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
Good morning, sunshine. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, I'm grateful you woke up this morning.
Good morning, sunshine.
Good morning, sunshine. We've been waiting for you. Say good morning. Good morning, sunshine. In America. Say good morning. I want you to wake me up.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source, ABC News. Wow. Breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated epic live events and moments.
Is this live?
All playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime. Streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you.
ABC News Live. In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
Do you trust him?
I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working out?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying.
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
Tonight, COVID-19 still spreading. As lockdowns ease and crowds get larger, are Americans being cautious enough? The new hotspots. With so much at stake, World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then you change the world.
If she had made this work, she would have been the next Steve Jobs.
It's the stunning documentary millions and millions watched. Now see for yourself what everyone is talking about. The Dropout, now on Hulu. Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app.
Thank you to the doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals.
To everyone keeping our supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations running.
To all the essential workers, we thank you.
And with every question you have, we will be here for you every day.
Because we will get through this together.
This is an ABC News special. Here now, Tom Yamas and Lindsay Davis.
And good afternoon from ABC News headquarters in New York on an exciting day for the U.S. space program. You are looking live at Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, where moments from now, a new era begins with the return of space missions launched from U.S. soil. So far, all systems go, but we should know for sure in just under 2 minutes. We are thrilled to be working with our partners at National Geographic to bring you this historic live event. It is the first time NASA astronauts will launch into space aboard a privately owned spacecraft, and it's the first time any private company has sent astronauts into orbit. You can see it there. The spaceship is called the Dragon on top of a huge Falcon 9 rocket, named, of course, after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, both built by Elon Musk and his company SpaceX. A U.S. launch hasn't happened in 9 years when the space shuttle program was closed down.
It is certainly a big day for those two NASA astronauts, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, currently awaiting liftoff in the Dragon capsule atop the 23-story tall rocket. There they were earlier, leaving the operations building, taking that famous walk to huge applause from the assembled staff and some guests, including their wives and sons. Virtual hugs all around. Also there, Vice President Pence. Then getting in Teslas for the ride to the launch pad, their families reaching out to them one more time. Before that, suiting up in the new spacesuits designed by a Hollywood costume designer. Teams checking them for any leaks and testing the communication systems. SpaceX founder Elon Musk meeting with the astronauts there. And then the men arriving at the launch pad, looking up at the rocket, taking the elevator all the way to the top, and then entering the Dragon space capsule. Our ABC's Gio Benitez is at the Kennedy Space Center. Gio, what do you know?
Let me get an update real quick. Gina, launch aborted started. So we just heard here from NASA, launch aborted started. We don't know if a final decision. SpaceX is not going to launch. That is the official word right now. The next attempt will be Saturday, 3:21 or 3:22 p.m. on Saturday. That is the next time that they can get this spaceship up into space and unite with the International Space Station. You know, this is something where we're looking at this, and it had to happen at exactly 4:33. The weather had to be right at that time, but it clearly is not going to be, at least according to SpaceX and NASA. They said if we had 10 more minutes, we might be able to do this, but you can't do that because this spaceship needs to get up there and meet with the International Space Station at a very specific time.
All right, Gio Benitez with that breaking news. If you're just tuning in, the SpaceX launch with NASA has just been aborted. Of course, the Falcon 9 rocket aboard the Dragon. My control room is now telling me we actually have the audio of when they aborted the mission. Let's listen in.
We continue to violate a couple different weather rules that we now do not expect to clear in time to allow for a launch today. We'll go ahead and end today's launch attempt. Launch control, if you would end the launch auto sequence and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence, please. Launch abort has started.
So that was the moment right there that they aborted the mission there. Of course, this has been a moment 9 years in the making. Katie Coleman is an astronaut who joins us now. We've been talking for several hours on ABC News Live and National Geographic just before this launch. We sort of saw this coming. The weather was so bad. We had heard from the NASA administrator who talked to the president, who at one point said, it's a go right now. But they sort of looked at the weather and walk us through sort of that decision making, because it's a poll taken by all of the parties involved.
So when they made the poll, the weather was actually complying. It was good enough, right? And they also saw it going in a good trend, that it was going to stay good. And yet it did not. And just I was listening to some of the chatter afterwards, and after they said, you know, if we'd had another 10 minutes, we maybe could have gone. It's not that it was just preordained. It's the Florida coastline. It's the afternoon, you know, in May. It's just it's tough to launch. And as Gino said, we're going up to the space station. We have to meet it at a certain point. There's only really exactly enough fuel to get there, and so we have to go at just the right time. We can't start late and still catch it.
Give us a sense of the disappointment as an astronaut. You've been in their shoes before. Your first mission aborted 7 times in 30 days.
And then 3 times on my second launch. And so,
you know this drill.
But you know, it's hard on the families, and in this case, it's a little bit different where people couldn't come to the launch. But I mean, I had hundreds of friends and family down there in Florida, hotel rooms and rental cars and vacation time, and yet the astronauts know they're going to go. It's just I mean, it means not right now. It means we're going to go when the time is right. The next window is on Saturday. So it's actually fine. It's not as hard on the crew as it is on the families and the friends, and everybody's been looking forward to it. But spaceflight happens when it's supposed to.
You know, Christina Cook is an astronaut who's just returned from space. Christina, you know, you've seen this happen before with other missions. And so I'm curious, as an astronaut who just returned from space, what do you do now in the coming days between Thursday and Saturday getting ready for that next launch?
Well, Chris Cassidy on board will have a second chance to get the rooms ready, I guess. But, you know, Katie's right. It can be disappointing. But as astronauts, we're trained to be adaptable and to sort of stay in the mindset that we need to, and to, you know, restart for the next time that we do have a launch. I was on board the space station when we had a SpaceX weather scrub of a cargo vehicle, and we were all really looking forward to that cargo vehicle arrival, and our entire week changed dramatically when it didn't launch and had to be rescheduled. So we're used to this. Bob and Doug, as fighter pilots, they have weather scrubs even on their sorties in aircraft all the time. So I have a lot of confidence that they'll be just as excited on Saturday as they were today.
All right, Christina Cook for us as well. Katie, thank you so much for your perspective. If you're watching us right now, this mission to the International Space Station between SpaceX and NASA has just been aborted because of the weather. If you're watching us right now, we're going to return to our local news programming. We're going to continue our coverage right now on ABC News Live and National Geographic, and we want to promise you we're going to bring you all the action on Saturday when this launch is going to happen again. Thank you so much for watching. Again, we continue our coverage on ABC News Live and National Geographic.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
And thank you for joining us on ABC News Live and National Geographic. We are back. As you know, you've been watching us every step of the way. This launch that we've all been looking forward to has just been aborted. And it's been aborted for a reason that was not man-made. It's weather, which is actually something good, because if it was something else, people would get nervous. But this is part of the game, and you've been telling us, Katie, all day, you've been through this process.
Well, and also things were learned today. You know, little things where you thought you'd be able to talk to someone, or, you know, this happened so fast and information either passed or didn't pass to different people. Lessons were learned that actually add up to the big picture. And they also will transfer to the other launches. I mean, this is new for NASA and a company to work together. And I'm sure that there were lots of surprises on the part of both partners. And so all this, it's all valuable. It's all part of the deal.
Give us a sense of how difficult this is a difficult undertaking under ideal circumstances, but in the midst of a pandemic, what the preparation, and I imagine now they've at least kind of had a dry run through, but just how difficult this is during in a time like this.
I think there's the physical part and then the emotional part. And I mean, just as all of us are finding in our own personal lives and business lives, there's just more logistics in place. Things are happening slower, fewer people, and you realize what you accomplish with actual, physical, closeness. And emotionally, I think it's hard as well with so much going on in the world, and actually just not being able to sort of feel like you're launching together, I think.
You know, I want to bring in Ginger Z now, because Ginger sort of was alluding to this. And Ginger, I know you didn't want to sort of overstep your bounds because of what the NASA meteorologists were looking at, but I could sense you sort of saw what they were going to see as well. Take us into the final seconds of what they actually saw and what happened there with the weather.
Yeah, and I think that's just before you left, me. I was definitely not wanting to overstep my bounds whatsoever. However, I have been really ingrained in what they've been doing, preparing for this launch, and what those requirements are, and they were not meeting it. And so that's why it was hard for me to say, like, this isn't happening, but that's what I think they were seeing at that moment. I saw a lightning strike, an artifact of a lightning strike it was 6.9 miles away from the Space Center, right when you and I were about to come on. That's why I had my cell phone in my hand. But what it ended up meaning was that alone was too close. And I imagine they had electrical charges from other storms still in the surrounding area. So I'm sure we'll find out after. I've got a couple of friends there at the Air Force who have been working on the forecast, so I'm sure I can check in and get some answers in a bit when they've settled down a little. And I know that this is, and you all said it, it's May. It's late May in Florida, and even if we didn't have a tropical wave or depression that was north of us, this is a really tough time because of the land sea breeze. The convergence that happens on the peninsula of Florida in the afternoon, we all know it, the pop up and down thunderstorms, that's a problem. Now, I think Melissa, who's a meteorologist that works with me, she's back running the graphics. She's going to run a future cast, and I think she's going to try to run us out through Saturday so that we can get a little peek into the future. It's pretty far from now, so there could be a lot of changes, but let's go ahead and do it, because why not? It looks like she has the shorter term one on, but you saw the showers and storms even in the morning there. We can only run it till 1 p.m. We're doing this in real time, so forgive us. But from Satellite Beach up to Titusville, you still had enough moisture, and it looks like a very similar setup to have those pop-up thunderstorms. So that's going to be a scattered in nature day. And unfortunately, probably a close call, but it shouldn't be this close. Today it was such an odd one because you had that Bertha. Remember, Bertha in South Florida, the last 2 days has dropped more than a foot of rain in a 24-hour period. You were just inundated in Miami and West Palm and Jupiter. So we knew there was going to be way too much moisture around. It was just if that would have electric charge. And unfortunately today it did. But we're going to be all over the forecast going forward. And by Saturday, I'll be here, you'll be here, we'll all be making calls on more than that, right? It doesn't look like we'll have the sustained winds on Saturday either, by the way. I should not have a wind shear issue, but that's something that they're going to be monitoring. They're sending weather balloons up constantly, and they're actually more than one group that's doing that. It's not the Air Force only. They've got a couple of private groups that are doing it. Cannot have the thunderstorms or lightning. You can't have smoke plumes, which is interesting, that create the clouds, and you can't have debris clouds that come off. You can't have separated anvils from a cumulonimbus cloud. There are a lot of rules, a lot of requirements, and we just want to find that window to make it happen. And we know that it is incredibly important because this troposphere, right, that I have again said that I love so much, that troposphere is where all the issues can happen, and we'll be glued to it for the next couple of days. Tom and Lindsay?
All right, Ginger, I was picking up what you were putting down. I was kind of channeling before that this was not happening, but you were just not saying that. Let's go back out for a last check with Gio Benitez before we go.
Hey, Lindsay. Yeah, a little bit of a sad sight here when you look here, because there it is, that countdown clock stopping there at T-minus 16:54. So we, again, will be looking at a Saturday afternoon launch. Hopefully the weather cooperates then, but we're looking at Saturday just after 3:20 p.m. or so, and we'll see if this rocket can finally get up there. But again, as Ginger just showed us, it was just too dangerous to do right now, and that's not a risk anyone wants to take here.
All right, Gio, thank you for that, and we appreciate your reporting. I want to go to Victor Oquendo before we wrap this up right now. Victor, I mean, so many people were looking forward to this. I say, just anecdotally hearing from friends and family, there hasn't been a lot going on with the coronavirus pandemic, and this was something to sort of uplift our spirits. What was the sense over there on the beach in Cocoa Beach?
Well, Tom, certainly now people are bummed out here on Cocoa Beach. We're up top at the pier that just reopened, and I watched people go from excited to bummed out. But that said, I did just speak with one family. It drove all the way in from Michigan. I asked, will you stick around until Saturday or potentially Sunday? They said, I got nothing else to do. I will be here for a month if I've got to wait that long. Seeing one of these launches in person is so incredibly special. The sheriff's office knew that. They were prepared and telling people to socially distance. They also had about 20,000 masks ready to hand out. We'll be doing it all over again in just a matter of days. Tom, Lindsay?
All right, Victor, we thank you. We see all those crowds of people there on the beach. So many people looking forward to this. We do want to remind you, though, that we are going to be sticking with the coverage on Saturday as well. We're going to start at 3 o'clock on ABC News Live and National Geographic. We're committed to covering this launch because it is truly a historical moment and one we really want to, everyone, as many viewers can around the country watch this, because it is going to be truly special.
It's not a no, it's a not now. Not yet.
And when it happens, I mean, it's amazing. When people leave the planet, it's going to be just as amazing as it would have been today. It's going to be awesome.
No, the stakes are still going to be high.
And I think certainly in this time, right, there's been so much sadness and so much to bemoan in 2020 that people are really looking for that inspiration and that hope. So we will look forward onward to Saturday.
Yeah, and there were so many amazing moments today. There will be amazing moments on Saturday. And like I said, we will be there every step of the way. We thank you so much for joining. For everyone here at ABC News, for our friends from NASA, astronauts current and retired, thank you so much for watching Launch America. We will see you Saturday at 3. Thank you.
What you need to know right now. Reopenings around the country surging as coronavirus case confirmations rise to 1.6 million. On the front lines in Puerto Rico, San Juan's mayor on the testing and tracing in short supply and how that's impacting the city's reopening. Tax facts, the 411 on filing for the new July 15th deadline. Our personal finance expert here with some moves you can use to help save as much as you can. Pandemic parenting. When the kids won't stop squabbling, psychiatrist Janet Taylor is here with strategies to help children of all ages get along. And we all know there's nothing like mom's cooking. Well, today, my mom's cooking. Keto Power with Joni Robach. And riding his bike and raising money to feed hungry families. The fifth grader lending a helping hand.
Now from ABC Studios in Times Square, Amy Robach with what you need to know.